You've heard the story of David versus Goliath, right? Well, this is that story, but with a modern twist. We're about to see how a global tech empire was brought to its knees, not in some fancy boardroom, but on the chaotic, gridlocked streets of Southeast Asia.
They were the Goliath of technology, a $70 billion empire that had totally rewritten the rules of transportation everywhere. But in Jakarta, their entire army of sleek black cars was completely, and I mean completely, annihilated by a humble fleet of green motor scooters.
So you gotta ask, how does that even happen? How does a titan like Uber, a company that basically conquered New York, Paris, and London, get so utterly humiliated in Southeast Asia? Well, that's exactly what we're gonna break down. We're gonna dive right into the paralyzing chaos of Jakarta's traffic. We'll meet the local visionary, Nadiem Makarim, who saw a solution that was hiding in plain sight. And, most importantly, we're gonna uncover the secret weapon that sealed Uber's fate, the super app. All right, to really get this, we're not starting at the beginning. No, we're jumping straight to the climax, the moment of truth. So picture this, it's 2016. An Uber executive is sitting in the back of a perfect air-conditioned Uber Black. But he's stuck. I mean completely stuck, in the legendary Jakarta traffic jam they call macet. He's supposed to be on his way to a huge meeting, but he is going absolutely nowhere.
And here's the thing, it's what's happening just outside his window that changes everything. His luxury car? It's basically a glorified air-conditioned prison. And outside, a river of green is just flowing past him. Thousands and thousands of motorbikes, riders in bright green Gojek and Grab jackets, just weaving through the gridlock like it's nothing. They're carrying passengers who are going to get to their destination in a fraction of the time. They're delivering food that his own Uber Eats can't even dream of getting through this mess. You see, they are the city's bloodstream, and his car? It's just a clot.
And just remember, the company this guy works for is at this very moment worth a staggering $70 billion, a global behemoth. You'd think they had infinite resources.
And yet, sitting in that car, he is trapped, he's powerless, and he is completely irrelevant. And that's when the crushing realization hits him. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how sleek your app is. They brought the wrong weapon to the fight. They had completely, fundamentally misunderstood the problem. On this battlefield, the war was already over. They had lost.
Look, if stories like this of local ingenuity just completely outsmarting a tech giant fascinate you, then you know what to do. Subscribing really does help us dig into more incredible business battles just like this one.
So, how did we get here? How did this even happen? To find the answer, we've got to rewind. We need to go back in time and see where all this came from. We need to understand the soul of Jakarta's streets and the mind of the man who cracked the code.
Okay, so long before any app showed up, getting around in Indonesia for short trips was all about the Ojek. Basically, these were informal motorcycle taxis you could find on pretty much every street corner. They were absolutely essential to daily life, but man, the system was a total mess. Prices were all over the place. You had to haggle for every single trip. And safety? Yeah, that was a real concern. It was inefficient, chaotic, but it was a vital part of the city.
And this is where our story really begins. A young Indonesian guy, a Harvard MBA named Nadiem Makarim, looked at all this chaos, and he didn't see a problem that needed to be replaced. No, he saw a system that just needed to be organized. So, way back in 2010, long before Uber was even looking at a map of Indonesia, he launched Gojek. And get this, it wasn't even an app. It was just a simple call center with 20 drivers. Then, a couple of years later, Grab pops up in Malaysia, solving similar local problems. Uber, they didn't show up until 2014. They were years late to a party they didn't even understand.
And this right here, this is the fatal flaw. Uber rolls in with its standard playbook, the one-size-fits-all global model, private cars, credit card payments only. They completely ignored the Ojek culture. They completely ignored the fact that cash is king. They weren't trying to solve Jakarta's problem. They were trying to force-feed it a San Francisco solution. Meanwhile, Gojek and Grab, they did the exact opposite. They built their entire model from the ground up based on how things actually work there. They embraced the motorcycles. They embraced cash. They organized the system that already existed instead of trying to burn it to the ground. And that cultural arrogance from Uber, well, that was the seed of their own destruction.
All right, so the battle lines are drawn. But Gojek and Grab were about to unleash their secret weapon, the one thing that would make them, well, completely unbeatable.
So January 2015, Gojek launches its smartphone app. And it wasn't just a launch, it was an explosion.
See, they didn't just give you a button to call a ride. From day one, you had Go Ride for people, Go Send for packages, and Go Food for, well, food. They understood something simple. The same bike that can move a person can move literally anything. And Uber, by comparison, they were just a taxi app.
Uber finally woke up and smelled the coffee in 2016, launching Uber Motor, but it was way too little, way too late. They were playing catch-up in a game their rivals had invented on their own home turf. They were trying to win over drivers and customers who were already loyal to the local guys who actually, got them.
But here's the real genius move, the masterstroke. Getting you a ride, that was just the foot in the door. The real endgame was to become the super app. So first, they totally cracked payments. They launched GoPay and GrabPay. You could literally walk into a corner store and top up your account with cash. This was a game changer. Suddenly, the app on your phone wasn't just for rides, it was your digital wallet. And from there, they just went nuts. Bill payments, groceries, movie tickets. You could even get a massage sent to your house. The app became the remote control for your entire life. Uber, trying to compete with just a ride-hailing service, was like bringing a can opener to a fight with a Swiss Army knife. It was just no contest.
And the cost for Uber's massive miscalculation. It was just staggering. They were bleeding cash, reportedly losing over $1 billion a year, fighting these losing battles in Asia. You have to understand, for Gojek and Grab, this was a fight for their home. For Uber, it was just a costly, bloody distraction on a continent they clearly never understood.
And so, the end finally came. March 2018, under new leadership, Uber did the unthinkable. They waved the white flag. It was officially over.
And listen, this wasn't some strategic retreat. This was a total unconditional surrender. Uber sold its entire Southeast Asian business. We're talking drivers, customers, the whole operation, to its biggest rival, Grab. And in return, they got a 27.5% stake in the very company that had just handed them this humiliating defeat. Goliath wasn't just beaten by David, he was absorbed by him.
So, when all the dust settles, what's the big lesson here? What's the one thing we can take away from Uber's complete and utter humiliation? It's this. Silicon Valley does not have a monopoly on good ideas, and cultural arrogance is the Achilles heel of any global empire. Uber looked at a fleet of motorcycles and saw a problem that needed fixing. Nadiem Makarim looked at the same thing and saw a powerful asset that just needed to be organized. In the end, the battle for Southeast Asia wasn't won by the company with the most funding. It was won by the ones who understood a simple truth. To win the streets of Jakarta, you have to think like the streets of Jakarta.
And that just leaves you with one final question to chew on. Which Goliath, in which industry, is going to be the next one to make the fatal mistake of ignoring local wisdom?